Thank you so much, Anishji, for agreeing to do this so graciously. As graciously as you agreed to answer my questions when I was researching for my book in 2016. When I didn't know you, I just followed you on Twitter and followed your work, and I just wrote to you, and you were so kind to immediately revert with the answers. And that was one of my high points which kept me going when you answered. Because a lot of my music chapter got written from the answers that you wrote. So I'm really, really grateful for that. And you had shared some of your work beforehand, which I did post in some common WhatsApp groups, etc., with the students. But of course, we have the first years here as well who might not be knowing you. And I had thought that I'd write out a formal introduction where I would tell everybody everything that you have done. But I thought a better way, because it's always when you have to introduce an artist, you should talk about his work, his art. So I'm going to take a minute to share my screen and show a small clip which just showcases all that you do. So give me a minute, please. I'll just do that. Is the screen visible? Kamal, is it? No?
No, ma'am.
Okay, 1 second. Okay, I think it's visible now.
Yes.
Yeah. So just a showcase of all that you do, Anishji. It's amazing. I mean, generally people pick up one job and they stick to it for a lifetime, and they struggle with, doing that well with so many different things. I mean, primarily a musician, a composer, but you have donned so many hats. You are a historian, you are a writer, author, you're an entrepreneur and activist as well, if I may say so. And how do you juggle so many roles? And number one, and number two, did you really plan or aspire to be all these things, or did it just happen organically, or maybe you would call it just by chance that you happen to work in so many different roles? And which one is your main role, which you enjoy the most, or which is primarily what you do? So tell us a little bit about that.
First of all, I'd like to wish everybody a namaste and good afternoon. Thank you very much, Ashu and the university, for having invited me to this class. I feel like I'm going back to university. So thank you for that. As far as your question goes regarding donning so many hats, some may say that it's jack of all trades and master of none. So
Not in your case, no.
but my main motivation has been that of being a student throughout my life. And I think that is what has led me to going into one along one or the other path, because I feel that when you have this sense of learning, sense of experiencing something new uh, every day of your life, you gain a lot.
Right.
And that's the reason. And of course it happened also organically. It was not something, I mean, when I was in school, I
Mhm.
remember, so I started my learning of music at a very early age. I was 6 when I started, but even before that, before I started learning tabla formally, uh, I was very interested in singing.
Right.
And and that point, you had the radio,
Mhm.
and All India Radio as the main medium of entertainment and edutainment. So I used to sing along with all the songs that were on radio at that time. And but soon my parents and friends of the family felt that I should undergo formal training. And so I was taken to my guru's place. He lived very close by, and he also ran a music school.
Mhm.
So I enrolled in the music school formally as a student of tabla,
Mhm.
and that just captivated me so much, and it became so much so integral to whatever I was doing at that time, because my Guruji, he asked my parents whether they could send me every day to his place every day. So the idea was that he wanted me to be in a musical environment for some hours every day. Of course, my parents had a very liberal outlook, and they were very musically inclined too, but they were not musicians.
Oh.
So to get a musical environment per se, I needed to be elsewhere. And so I remember after my schooling hours, I would come back to my homework and then go to his place and stay there for a few hours, practice under his watchful eye, play with different people, and then come home. And even if the teaching did not take place every day, because earlier it was a classroom situation, so his senior disciples would teach students like me. It was only later on, towards the end of my academic schooling, that
Mhm.
he said that, okay, now you can learn from me. He accepted me as a disciple
Wow.
formally, and he said, now you can learn directly from me. But throughout, he was very mindful of how I was going about my practice,
Mhm.
in the process of meditation, and a lot, because it's, as a student, I believe that it's not only what you are taught or spoon fed.
Right.
It's also about what you do personally by observing, by imbibing yourself. So you have to literally be like a sponge, and try to get the most out of every experience. And then
Right.
after that, slowly you can distill what is not required. And sometimes some things fall, because of disuse or whatever,
Mhm.
fall along the wayside. Uh, but mm, but this openness is so important, I feel, for a student. And that is one of the main things that helps one in creativity, because the creative process is one that is about letting go of all restrictions.
I agree.
It's not of course being yeah, I mean, you have to be rooted, you
Mhm.
have to be grounded, I believe. uh, So I'm grounded in the Hindustani tradition which I'm trained in,
Mm.
and helps because those are my moorings. So it's like my mother tongue.
Mm.
So, but at the same time, it's not straight jacketed, because the tradition itself is not like that. I
Right.
mean, it's a living tradition because maestros in the past and present have believed that tradition is not the same as orthodoxy. So
Wow.
tradition is something that cannot stagnate.
Yeah.
When you don't want something to stagnate, you have to keep thinking, you have to keep yourself open, frank, and expressive.
Right. And that is why I think learning for a lifetime is so important, because if you stop learning, you get static as well. So for anything to grow and to continue, I think that it is important for us to improvise at every stage of our lives, even when it comes to learning, even if it's art which has a history. Uh, Anishi, are you there?
Yes,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
there. I'm there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so sorry. I think this connection is a little slow. I don't know if at my end, Amar, or is it at
No,
Anish?
ma'am, you are coming absolutely perfect. The audio and the video. It's from Anish, sir.
Okay, great. Anishi, I hope you can hear us now.
Can you? Absolutely.
You can? Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, yeah, so like we were saying, like you said, I mean, a couple of very important points, because, the next class, when we start next week for my second years, we will be talking about learning and
Yes.
strengthening our creative skills. And what Anishji talked about is very, very relevant. How we learn when we are learning anything, any creative skill or any skill for that matter. Uh, Learning not just what is being taught in a classroom by one single teacher is important. You are responsible for your own learning. You learn a lot from your environment. And in this day and age where we have so much connectivity, the technologies playing such a great role in our learning, we have everything at our fingertips. And learning does not end with the classroom. And Anishi, are you there? Yeah, there's some problem with the connection.
Yes, I'm there. I'm there.
Yeah, you can hear us, right? So, moving on, Anishi,
I
I
can
just
hear
want
you.
to take a raise of hands here, because we have a very young generation or young age group of audience here. I just want you to raise your hands. How many of you actively listen to classical music? You have any Indian classical music on your playlists? Let's see how many people. Only two participants raise their hands. Amar, of course, and Kamal, I know both do. Okay, 7, 8, 9. It's increasing. But still, I would say, Anishji, uh, what would you say about this?
Yes.
That younger generation is actively not listening to Hindustani music. What would you say, or do you find it? Do you want to contradict this statement and say that is wrong, and you have a lot of young audiences come to your performances?
Well, actually, as a matter of fact, I do have a lot of young audiences in my concerts. So I would hesitate to make a generalization
Okay,
about young people.
right.
Also, I believe that everybody does not need to have the same musical taste,
Hmm.
and there too, if we are open about appreciating the fact that everybody can have their own tastes, and that we can also partake of each other's listening experience,
Right.
then it'll make a more fulfilling experience for everybody.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, what tends to happen is that many musicians and even parents or teachers, uh, they uh, they want to kind of make it compulsory
Mm.
for people to listen to one or the other kind of music.
Mm.
And that, I think, is not such a good idea. What listening to, and because I strongly believe that and from their experience of listening to different kinds of
You're having some problems.
Yes, ma'am. I think the connection. Anisha is where? In which country, ma'am? In India or some abroad?
Yeah.
India.
Anishi, I think we lost you for a bit. Are you there?
I don't know why. 1 minute. I'm very much here.
Yeah. Okay. You can hear us?
Let me just
We just
1 minute.
lost you for a bit.
Just give me a minute. Just give me a
Sure.
minute.
Sure.
Just a minute.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. We
Is
can hear
this
you.
better?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So I heard everything, and I don't know whether you heard everything that I said.
We lost you for a bit in the end. So
Okay.
we
So
just
what I was trying to say was that I don't think it is a good idea to
Mm.
make listening to a particular form of music a compulsory thing,
Right.
uh, because I think everybody has their own tastes for music,
Right.
and in fact, all of us should pull together whatever we are listening to and make a larger playlist and
Yeah.
exchange music, so that we get to learn from each other.
Yeah. But my point is that, sometimes it's just a bias. We have this
Absolutely,
biases
absolutely.
that, classical music means something very difficult, something which is not easy to understand.
Yes,
So tell us a little bit, because you are primarily a musician and a tabla player. So,
yes,
and trained for so many years and performed for so many years in this tradition. So, if there
yes.
are some music lovers here who have shied away from listening to Hindustani music or experiencing or exploring it, how would you, describe or introduce them to this tradition? What would you tell them about this tradition? Why is it so beautiful, or why should they listen to it? And another extension of that question, specifically about tabla, because
Yes.
you said you picked up the instrument when you were quite small. What was it that attracted you about it? And secondly, what is the role of tabla in a classical performance? Because as a lay audience, tabla is generally, perceived as a side supporting kind of a character, while the hero is the vocalist or another instrumentalist. So,
Yes.
what is Indian classical music, if you want to explain it to somebody in lay terms? And what is the role of the tabla? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right, right. So to answer your first question about the bias part, I think biases work on all sides,
Mhm.
and so we have to be careful about that as well.
Right.
So because I come across many classical music listeners who equally say that, oh, film music, this is terrible. Oh, Western music, this is terrible. Oh, this, oh, that.
Right.
And it just comes from most of the time it comes from a lack of exposure,
Yeah.
and which brings me to the second part of your
Mm.
question. If indeed there is some inhibition
Mm.
about listening to Hindustani music, which is the North Indian classical music system, the
Right.
South Indian one is called Carnatic music. So whichever system, um, there could be inhibitions for a variety of reasons. One is that nobody in your family or immediate surroundings is exposed to this music. Therefore, naturally, you are not living in that environment.
Yeah.
So it becomes difficult for you to have immediate access
Right.
to this kind of music. The other thing is you might have access, but due to either the influence of your peers or whatever else, you develop a certain preconceived notion about this form of music, that, oh, it's too slow. Oh,
Mm.
these are the common elements, I'm saying,
Mm.
oh, it's too slow. Oh, we can't understand it. Oh, what are these words? They seem all ancient, and, it's not foot tapping music.
Mm.
And you can't dance to this music. So these are some of the things that people seem to have preconceived notions about. Um, so I would address this issue um, mm, in a slightly different manner. I would say that until and unless uh, people in their homes, that is the seniors in the family or the teachers,
Mm.
don't inculcate the listening habit among themselves.
Yeah.
It's like reading.
Yes.
If the seniors in your family are not reading, then you cannot just expect the child to get up and suddenly start reading some heavy classic. So uh, so I think that inculcating of this habit of listening, and when I say listening, it is not only hearing.
Mm.
It's not just a biological activity, of hearing music, but it's to listen carefully. And once you start listening carefully,
Mm.
you start picking up the specific traits of every kind of music that you're listening to.
Yeah.
So when you feel that, oh, this speed is too slow,
Mm.
but when you start listening carefully, why is the speed slow? There is something happening there in the music, in the melodic framework or the rhythmic framework, or in the way that the words are being uttered, which needs the speed to be slower. It's not just something that we have decided today, oh, let's have it slow.
Mm. Yeah.
So everything, the creative process also is well grounded on a sense of logic, a sense of reasoning.
Right.
It's not an anarchic development.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and for that not to be an anarchic development, and for that to have a kind of uh, sequence of ideas, a logic of its own, internal logic, perhaps this logic is not perceivable by everybody. And it does not need to, because finally everybody is seeing the end result.
Mm. Mm.
And then their opinion to that is a subjective one.
Right. Right.
But the fact that there is a valid statement of art here
Mm.
shows that there is some sort of logic in it. And and that logic, that understanding of logic, uh, comes from your the education that you have gone through. So
Absolutely.
that education is very important. Today I cannot just get up and say that, oh, I'm going to start sculpting now.
Mm.
Of
Yeah.
course I can. Of course I can. Nobody is going to stop me. But perhaps many of the things I will be reinventing the wheel. People
Right.
may have done it for centuries already.
Yes.
Okay. And then I'm going to start doing the same thing because I don't have the education. Now, even if I want to reinvent the wheel, it's
Mm.
fine for
Mm.
myself, as
Right.
long as I know that I'm doing it for myself. But if I start believing that I'm doing it for the rest of society, then I'm fooling myself first and fooling
Right.
others too.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
so a
Absolutely.
lot of so a lot of people say that, oh, I'm a self-taught musician.
Yeah.
So no harm, no harm. You
Yeah.
pick up a guitar, you pick up a tabla, you do anything, or you start singing.
Right.
No harm. You can do that. But if you learn from somebody,
Mm.
It will make things quicker, because you don't have to go through the entire process of discovering things. Those
Also,
things have
also maybe you will not get stuck at a point and you will not stop growing. Yeah.
absolutely, because there will be this constant motivation to go to the next level.
Mm.
So, for instance, I mean, it's not worth talking about, but something that I do for myself.
Mm.
Uh, I like to sketch or paint. So
Mm.
this is not something that I have uh, formally trained in.
Mm. Mm.
So it's just a personal thing that I want to do when I'm not doing music or reading or writing anything. So that's fine. But once I want to share this with other people, then you take it to another level,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then you must be open to the idea that you will be criticized also.
Absolutely. So my second years are here. I hope you're all paying attention. This is all leading back to where we started this course. Anishi, we talk about a 4C model of creativity, where we say we have a mini C, we have a small C, we have a mini C, we have a pro C, and we have a big C. So big C is something that, exceptional. So for example, Beethoven, or say a Pandit Ravi Shankar, somebody who
Yes,
gave the domain something extraordinary.
yes, yes,
But small c and mini c is something that we do daily, which as people we can do daily. So we can
yes,
indulge in a little bit of art.
absolutely,
We can sing in our houses. Or we can
absolutely,
sing a song in with our friends. That is also, being involved with creativity, but at a lesser level. And of
yes,
course, pro C is when you choose to do something professionally and you're being
professionally,
creative there, and big C is of course very, very rare, because it is something that
absolutely,
leaves a mark on the
absolutely,
world. But like you said, to progress from small c, mini c to even pro c requires the learning that you mentioned. So
absolutely.
yeah, and you talked about critics. So we
Yes,
have another model which is a systems model. If my students are listening, which says there is the domain, there is the person who creates, and then there is the gatekeepers or the critics who decide what a person, if he's created something, is it worth it, values, or gives a value to this thing. So
yes,
just like you talk, the most common example is movies. They come out every week and critics write a review, and they tell us if they're good enough, or what is the value, or what is the art in there. So I think you mentioned that. I'm glad, because I had a question regarding this a little later, but we kind
sure,
of
sure.
covered it here. Yeah. So just to extend this a little bit, what do you think about critics, audiences, critics? What is their role in enhancing the creativity of an artist? Uh,
I think it's extremely important, because finally you are performing not just for yourself. If you were
mm,
performing for yourself, you would be at your home
right.
and doing it in your room. But once you're on stage and you're doing it to share it with other people, then you must be open to the idea of their response to that.
Right. Yeah.
And whether or not to accept the criticism and to or their critical opinion, and whether to implement something based on that, is of course something that you need to make a judicious choice about. Because even if somebody says, oh, I didn't like this,
Mm,
maybe you should change this, etc., etc., uh, it doesn't mean that you have to give up what you have done, or
mm,
certainly not all that you have done.
right.
But if you feel that no, there is some logic in what this person is saying, then you might want to rethink. But for all this, once again, it depends on how open you are.
Right.
And that openness has to be there, not just with others, but with yourself. First, with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because very often it's our ego which gets the better of us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
whether it's to do with the learning,
Yeah.
or whether it's to do with sharing with others, everything, the ego is so strong. So that's why I feel uh, being a student always is very important, because that brings a sense of humility in you, because you're constantly thinking that no, I don't know enough, and I need to gather more information, get more knowledge.
Yeah.
And from knowledge, then you will start getting to the wisdom level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wisdom is and knowledge are two different things. Absolutely.
Yes, 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 yes.
And you talked about this being open. Open also means not being, restricted by the fear of failure, for example. So my students, for example, they turn in their assignments. I keep telling them, mine is a very open kind of a course. We don't
Yeah,
have an exam for it. How can you judge creativity through an
yeah,
exam?
yeah,
So we have some assignments that I give them, and I find that they are still, restricted with the idea of passing, getting grades, and that is why I feel that some of them might have attempted, but still a large number of you second years, if you're listening, have still not opened up to the idea that when you are given an assignment and said you have to think creatively, you have to just let go. You have to let go of all those fears and be open about it. So I'm glad you brought that. Yes.
i think I think it's very important to enjoy the creative process.
Yeah. So,
Well, if you set goals for yourself, too many goals for yourself, and say, okay, I have to get X number of marks, or in my case, supposing I'm performing somewhere, and
mhm.
I say that, oh, this performance has to be the best in my life, etc., etc. Uh, that immediately is narrowing the perspective.
Yeah.
So whereas if I go with the idea that I want to enjoy this experience,
Yes.
uh, then then it makes more sense, because actually your exam is not on the performance day. Your exam is all the years of learning and hard work that you have put in.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
The What you're doing on stage should be actually enjoyment.
Mm.
You're
What a wonderful thought. That I
yes,
think you should all, remember this thing, which is very, very important for you as students and tomorrow as young professionals as well. Enjoy what you're doing,
yes,
and work hard when you're learning something. And
yes.
don't work hard just for the sake of, doing well on one particular day. You mentioned the joy of it, and I have a little clip of yours, a performance
Sure,
of yours, a very short one, where
sure.
the joy is very evident. So I looked at it and I thought I had to share it. So let me try sharing my
Sure,
screen once more, and
sure.
uh, we'll play this. So just wanted to share that joy on your face. I mean, everybody would want to do something for a living which gives them this much joy. So in fact, when I start my course or my trainings, the first thing that I tell everybody, my audiences or my students, is I ask them a question: why do you think we need to learn how to be more creative? And one of the reasons that I give is because it's not something that I say, it has been proven by research, is that creativity actually gives you the best kind of happiness. So again, the second years, remember, Cheek Sent Me High's flow and Abraham Maslow's peak experiences. So, Anishji, they talk about these moments, which some of us do experience, even if we are not overtly creative. Is like if we are pursuing a sport, or if we are listening to our favorite music, or we are involved in spirituality, we often experience these moments where we are like in the Zen state. And it is said
Absolutely.
that the creative artists experience these Zen states more often than an average person, and that's why they are creative, and they keep on being creative. And I don't know if you've heard of this very famous hierarchy of needs model, which says that the motivation for anybody to for human beings to do anything is hierarchical. So it's basically you have to satisfy your basic needs. So it's like food, shelter, clothing. So our motivation is that once that is fulfilled, we look at social needs. And ultimately, when we have achieved everything, we kind of look at self actualization. But it is believed that artists sometimes, forego their basic needs. It has been seen and proven by research that they are known to forego this because they want to experience that Zen state, which is far more important for them rather than having a roof over their head. So we have heard of, the very poor poet who keeps on writing poems, or the artist who says, I'll create music, I don't care about the world, and stuff like that. So I'm happy to have shared this. The joy is very evident, and I hope you agree with that, the research and what it says.
Yes, I do agree with it, but the extreme end of that would be when a lot of listeners or even patrons believe that, oh, money and food, clothing, shelter, all this is not important for artists. You just make the music and don't bother about the money. So and this happened, very close to us now during this pandemic situation.
Mm,
Everybody, once the lockdown started, everybody started telling musicians and even other artists that,
mm,
oh, do something to spread positivity.
mm,
So
mm,
you screen your performances from your homes.
mm.
And so people did it for 1 month, for 2 months, and obviously nothing was ticketed, nothing is supported financially. So the
Right.
musicians are doing it on their own steam. And so how long can they do it, and they are not considered either industry here, or unless it's film industry,
Mm, mm.
but the freelancers are not considered like that, and they are not even considered as daily wage labor or whatever. So
Right.
there are no handouts from government or corporates or whatever else.
Right.
Very few exceptional cases. So I am always careful when I'm saying that, oh, I'm not bothered about material things.
There's always that practical side, and yeah.
Yes, yes.
And if you can get both the Zen moments and the money, I think that's the ideal situation.
Oh, absolutely. And also, while we are talking about the creative process, and you did mention the critics, but even prior to the critics, you can have your own set of frustrations also.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
and the frustrations can be of multiple kinds. Let's say if you're a professional,
Mm,
let's say if I'm a professional performer, just the fact that I'm not getting too many performance opportunities
mm,
can be a very stifling thing.
yeah.
Uh, okay, so that becomes a stumbling block. That is a frustrating thing. So, and many musicians are going through that now.
Yeah. So
Uh,
I actually wanted to talk about your initiative, Gift a Concert. That
yes, yes, we'll come to that.
yeah.
And but also the frustration need not necessarily be about the material part.
Hmm.
It can be about the creative process itself,
Yeah.
where you're hitting yourself against a blank wall,
Yes. Yes.
and you are not able to think beyond that. And and then suddenly there is a moment when there is this spark, and you say, this is the thing.
Yeah. So it
So
is actually called the aha moment, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so that also, if you have got a good guru or good teacher or whatever,
Right.
they will guide you. That those are very crucial moments,
Yeah. Yeah.
because of course all moments are important, just learning etc. is very important, but you need special hand holding when the student is going through this frustrating moment. Let us say you have put in hours of actual physical labor while
Mm.
playing,
Right.
and yet you are not able to get the right sound or the right speed
Mm. Mm.
or something like that. I'm just giving you very few examples.
Right.
Then it is the actually the role the role of the guru is very important here, because he or she may have already gone through this process.
Yeah.
So therefore, actually, the creative process
Mm.
is one that should sensitize you as a human being,
Yeah.
and you should be able to be empathetic to other people's feelings, you know. So, and the what better way can you show that when you do it with your students? So when your students need this hand holding, the guru must extend himself or herself, and that helps, you know. So I think this understanding this the creative process in its entirety,
Mm.
not just the high points but even the low points, is
Yeah.
very important. And the low points are there for everybody. Unfortunately, what happens, people see performers in public, you know, on the stage, so
Mm.
they think, oh, fantastic, you know, they're doing great
Mm.
job. But behind that, there is not only hours and years of physical labor
Yeah.
and mental labor, but also a lot of challenges, frustrations, and when you emerge a victor through that. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm saying the examination is not actually on stage. It
Right.
is whatever has gone before that.
Mm, yeah. So, in fact, I will be talking in class because we are talking about strengthening of creative skills. I'll be talking about a theory called 10 years of silence, which is another research that has been done that all very prominent. So, they have studied musicians and uh, artists, painters. And obviously, it is a study in the West. So, it is people like Mozart and Beethoven and stuff like Mozart, of course, is an exception, but Beethoven, for example, and other lots of other prominent musicians and artists, they are said to have had 10 years of silence, which is when they were working and nobody was aware of their work or of them. So that 10 years they were just silently working, and after that 10 years of work they emerged these heroes that we know them as,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Actually, for a musician,
Hmm.
it's very much a solitary journey.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
when we are performing in the presence of a public.
Right.
But most of the day, or most of the days, we are actually only playing for ourselves.
Yeah, that's
And we are examining ourselves, we are thinking of the creative process at that time,
yeah.
and honing our skills at that point. So it's a moment of solitude. I am not saying loneliness, no.
Okay.
We don't feel lonely,
Yeah.
no. It's a moment of solitude when you go within yourself. And it will be interesting, perhaps, for your students to know
Mm.
that in the traditional Hindustani format, now it doesn't happen so much,
Mm.
but there is a period,
Mm.
we call it chilla.
Okay.
Chilla.
Okay.
Okay. It comes from Chehlum.
Okay. Okay.
So 40 days.
Oh.
So 40 days, it's a Islamic kind of routine, which
Mm-hmm.
has come to music as well, because many of the musicians were also Muslim musicians.
Mm-hmm.
So this chilla is when the student, or the musician, even a professional musician does it, decides to go within himself or herself for 40 days, consecutive days, no performances
Right.
during those days, no interaction with the outside world. You just sit in one room from a certain time to a certain time, and literally burn the midnight oil, and keep on practicing. And even the material that you're practicing You don't change it every day. So you just work on a particular area and go very deep into that. And after those 40 days, maybe immediately you will not get the result. But after some time, suddenly people say, that there is a certain radiance in your playing or your singing.
Wow.
So this, what you were saying of the silence, this has happened even in our tradition.
This is something new and something so beautiful that we learned today. And I think not just music, I think everybody should perform this ritual, if not 40 days, but at least spend some time within yourselves.
Yeah, actually, you can design it the way you want to. And the biggest thing is, don't talk about it.
Wow.
Because the moment you talk about it, that's
Mm.
when your ego comes forward.
Yeah.
Oh, मैंने चिल्ला किया. Oh, gone. Yeah. Because you did not understand what was the idea actually behind that.
So, a couple of more concepts that I want to ask questions related to before we open it to the audience.
Yes.
One is, which again we'll be talking in class with my second years soon, which is constraints. Uh,
Yes.
so they say, though creativity is supposed to be out of box thinking, but to actually execute your ideas, sometimes you have to bring everything back into the box and follow. So. Hindustani classical music, I think, or classical music or music in general, is a very good example of creating within constraints because you have rules, you have fixed notes, and you play the tabla. The tabla
Yes.
also has fixed beats, rhythm,
Yes.
etc. So, what is the scope of creativity when you are bound by so many rules?
Yes.
So,
So,
because we are management students here, we also, when we go out, they go out as professionals tomorrow, they'll have the constraint of having a boss over them, not the best of the team, maybe people you don't get well along with, or budget constraints or deadlines. So how do you create within those constraints? Give us a few tips, maybe we can extrapolate that to management.
sure, sure. So, of course, the material constraints of budget or all those things apply to music and musicians too.
Right.
So we are in a similar situation
Mm,
there.
mm,
Um, regarding other constraints,
mm.
creative constraints,
Creative.
and earlier you had asked me of my role as a tabla player,
Right, right.
as an accompanist to
Yes.
vocal or instrumental music or to
Yeah,
dance.
yeah.
Uh, and there I might face some constraints
Mm,
because my role there is not of that of a soloist.
mm, mm.
So I have to maintain a certain sense of self-restraint
Right.
because I am accompanying. I
Mm,
have to respond to what the main performer is saying through his or her music or through their dance,
right.
and respond accordingly. So I may have a million ideas,
Mm, mm,
uh,
mm,
but there, those ideas are of no use.
mm,
I have to say what, like for instance, it's because finally, what is music making? It's
mm.
actually you are having a conversation. A
Right.
conversation, but instead of using the spoken word, you are using melody, rhythm,
Mm,
poetry,
right.
all these elements. And the manner in which you interweave these three elements,
Mm,
whether the melody is a single melodic line, as it happens in most Indian music,
mm,
or whether it's layered melodic lines as it happens in Western music or several other
mm,
cultures, and which is why you have harmony and counterpoint, etc.,
right.
etc. You have chords, yeah.
Yeah.
So, or you have very intricate rhythm,
Mm,
or you have very simple rhythmic lines.
mm,
Okay, all these things. So I'm also answering that other question you asked me: what are the basic things in Indian classical music? So,
right. Yeah. Yeah.
so, so I haven't forgotten your question.
Yeah. Yes.
so, so when I'm a tabla player, depending on the kind of music I'm accompanying
Mm,
and the person I'm accompanying.
right.
For instance, this conversation about creativity
Mm,
could have happened with anybody else. other than you.
Hmm.
And my response would have been, should be different there.
Right. Yeah.
Broadly speaking, it will be similar ideas.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay. But if the person has asked me some specific question, I cannot say, oh, I prepared this for my discussion with Ashu, so
Hmm.
I'm going to put that there,
Yeah.
So, so there you have to be quick thinking
Hmm.
and change accordingly, mold yourself accordingly.
Right.
So those could be constraints, those could be challenges,
Hmm.
but those challenges can be beneficial for you also.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's how you what is the perspective. If you're positive about it, then it doesn't come across as a constraint.
Right.
If you're negative about it, then everything is a constraint.
True. Yeah, agreed. Yeah. So we were talking a little bit about the pandemic, and I just mentioned for a brief moment your
Yes,
idea about gift a concert.
yes,
So I found that very, very exciting creatively because,
yes,
we are talking in the class now, right now. They are working on an assignment, which is their final assignment for this quadmester,
yes.
where I have given them the freedom. I said, choose the problem that you want to solve and give me as many ideas as you can about solving
Wow.
that problem. So it's like brainstorming. So, this unique problem that was thrown with the pandemic, I just want to understand what was the thought process behind this beautiful idea. Just tell us a little bit about the idea, of course, and what went behind it. How did you come about this idea? And it's such a beautiful solution. So, second years, please pay attention. This is a big hint for your assignment coming right up.
So first and foremost, Gift Concert is an initiative that my wife Shubha Mudgal and I started under the larger umbrella of our company called Underscore Records Private Limited.
Right.
Both have their own websites, Underscore Records, www.underscorerecords.com, and there's giftaconcert.com also. And the idea was that when the lockdown was enforced,
Mm.
we heard from a lot of musicians that they were undergoing hard times, as as was the rest of society, of course. But nobody was thinking about artists, because art is not thought of as an essential thing for society.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we say we think of arts as something that is for entertainment. So
Mm.
that's something thought of last, So so we thought that of course we will write to governments
Mm.
and to take up some model schemes
Mm.
for artists. But before that, we thought, let's not wait for governments to react, let's do something on our own. And so we started an initiative called ADA. It's an acronym,
Mm.
Assistance for Disaster Affected Artists.
Right.
And primarily we were looking at marginalized artists in 10 states across the country.
Right.
We reached out to grassroots level organizations in each of the 10 states. Those organizations chose 10 artists from their state.
Mhm.
Eventually, we raised something close to 43 lakhs. This was done by 6 people.
Mhm.
Shubha and me, we were there. Then Rahul Vora, very well known actor and director, and his wife Mona Irani, who is a casting director, and two cultural practitioners, Arundhati Ghosh and Samira Iyengar. So the 6 of us thought of this. We also wrote to the chief ministers of these 10 states saying that we've done this and
Mm.
we would like, and we also put down some model schemes
Mhm.
that we thought the government could enforce, implement. Um, Unfortunately, nothing has happened,
Mhm.
both from center and state, except for very perfunctory kind of short-term financial aid.
Okay.
But then we thought that, okay, you can't live on charity throughout,
Mhm.
and it doesn't do the self-respect any good as well.
Right.
So because there were musicians who were saying, that we want to work,
Mm.
so get us some work. So we just don't want a free ration.
Mm.
So So then we thought, Shubha and I thought of this gift us a concert where we thought we could we could create a platform
Mm.
where musicians and dancers and other artists performers could register themselves on a
Right.
nominal fee, and simultaneously potential hosts
Mm.
could see the registration, see who all have registered, and depending on their choice of artist, they could decide whether they wanted to host a concert for an exclusive audience on Zoom or similar platform. And then we decided to liaise between the two parties,
Mm.
and so that we could get a decent fee for the musicians.
Musicians.
That was the original idea. Alongside that, we decided to do periodic public ticketed online concerts too. So for instance, the next one is on 7th November.
Mhm.
And yes, so it's open to everybody who buys that ticket from overseas or from India. And that way we get the word going too. So
Right.
this was the basic idea.
So it's lovely to see that, how you look at a problem, then you examine that problem, look at various angles, try various things,
Yes,
and then, zero upon something that works. Or so that is what creativity is. We talk about creativity in these terms. We say, think about the problem, then let your imagination go wild, think of all possibilities, then slowly kind of iterate and you zero in on one. Uh,
yes,
Idea. That's the idea that the people who are submitting their assignments have to look at, because they have been given that stage where they are free to think of as many ideas, and in their next quad they will be looking at one idea that they can pick up. And ultimate goal for our aim for our course, Anishji, is that if we can come up with something which is patentable, an idea that is patentable at the end of it. So that is the ultimate
fan-
aim
fantastic.
we are looking at from the
You know,
creative.
while we are at it, and you spoke about constraints,
Hmm.
hmm,
Right.
and this is something in jest, I will say, but there is an element of truth in it
Hmm.
also. And I thought it is important because I'm addressing a class of management
Right.
students. This is something that we come up very often.
Hmm.
So, for instance, first of all, I must admit that neither Shubha nor I, we are not management people, you know. So we're actually mad people, you know. We just, so we just think of these ideas, and I don't know how successful or whatever they are. By your standards of management, perhaps they won't be successful. but
Right.
but even so, it has created a good vibe among the community. The whole idea for us is that musicians should not treat themselves as individuals in society, but as a collective.
Right.
Because when you have a collective voice. And when you have a collective voice, you can make representations to the right people.
Right.
That is the basic idea.
Yeah.
Uh,
So you said you're mad. That is exactly what creative people are, I think. And I've actually used the word "go crazy" when I said we gave them this thing. I said, imagine you have no constraints. Imagine you are Mukesh Ambani. You have
yes,
all the resources at your feet. What would
yes,
you do to solve a
yes,
problem that really bothers you?
yes.
That's the idea. So let's see what they come up with, and if we come up with something interesting, Anishi, I'll share it with you. Some
I'll
interesting.
quickly tell you about that constraint.
Hmm.
So, among the many management courses that are offered, there is one in event management.
Right.
I don't know whether your university has it, but many places they do have it. And in the event management course, sometimes they even have sports management.
Yeah.
Uh, yes,
Right.
but there is no specific course for managing music related events.
Right.
And that too, those courses do not address the specificities of particular musical forms.
Mm-hmm.
So so for instance, I'll give you a very brief idea. For instance, you'll have a very big event management company
Mm-hmm.
looking after a concert, okay, or a music festival. You go into the green room,
Mm,
So now I'm doing classical music there. Okay. So what do I need in the green room?
mm,
I need a carpet.
mm,
I need a white sheet or
mm.
some clean sheet where I can sit down on the ground because that's the way I perform.
Right.
You enter the green room
Mm.
and there are only chairs there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why? Because they did not think about the music that they are, the event that they are managing.
Right.
They thought of it like any other event. So that's a constraint that we come across sometimes.
Right.
So there is a bit of a mismatch there. So I think sometimes educational institutions can, address this issue.
Right. Right. Uh, just one last thing, which brings us to your other interest, which is history. So you write
Yes.
a lot about, because you I think studied history formally
Yes.
at college and university,
Yes.
and but you have combined the subject of history so beautifully with your music. So you write often about history of music, and I'm a big fan of all your columns. I read them very regularly.
Thank
So
you.
so tell us a little bit about this. Combining of two things, because in music also we have something called as fusion, where two different
Yes.
forms can come in and create something beautiful. So tell us about this coming together of two different things, and how is it important for creativity?
Yes. I think we live in a world today where interdisciplinary things are happening constantly, and subjects don't exist in isolation.
Right.
Although we have gone deep into specializing in one or the other element, but
Right.
there are always overlaps, there are always interconnections,
Mm.
and perhaps sometimes we have lost the origin of these interconnections. So we need to rediscover themselves, rediscover them for
Mm.
ourselves, and
Right.
that becomes an enriching experience because it takes the creative process further.
Right.
So when I was in college, of course, I was doing political history,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, I did my masters, and then a very celebrated professor of history, Professor J.V. Naik, who then became my guide for PhD.
Mm.
He said that, Anish, don't stop at your masters, do your PhD, and I will guide you.
Mm.
And but think of a good topic. And I'm very much a Bombay person,
Mm.
Mumbai person, and I realized that 100 years before I was doing my music career, there were musicians who had migrated to this city
Mm.
from distant parts of the country,
Right.
particularly from North and Central India and neighboring areas of Mumbai, and they made Mumbai their permanent place of settlement. And what kind of challenges did they face in their career and in their learning? Because constantly when you are learning, when you are pursuing a career, you think about the challenges you're facing, and
Mm.
you always feel a sense of self pity, that,
Mm.
oh, nobody else but you are facing all these problems. And then you
Right.
look back 100 years before you,
Mm.
when there was no train or this or that, there
Right.
were no ease of transport and communication. How did those people live, survive, and not just that, but make great music? So there's a lot to learn from that. And so that's why I decided to do a history of Hindustani music in colonial Bombay.
Wow.
So which then was published as a book. And then the next book was almost like a sequel. So I had done the first one till 1947, and then I decided 1947 until now,
Mm.
what is the situation with Hindustani music. And so history has always engaged me because I always feel, for a tradition, it is important to know what history has to tell us.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also a lesson that you don't have to really stick to what you're learning in college and university. You can expand your horizons, you can explore So like
Oh,
we are
absolutely.
learning today from a musician, the techniques of creativity. So the learning never ends. You don't have to put boundaries when it comes to learning. So I
Right,
think
right.
I would now like the students to ask a few questions. If you have any, we can look at the chat. And if somebody wants to directly ask a question, please unmute yourself, or maybe Amar can help us with that.
Sure, ma'am. Sure. I'm giving them rights to unmute.
Yeah. So there's a comment meanwhile from somebody saying when we were talking about learning from a teacher, so she's mentioned that when we learn a new instrument, the right technique is also taught by the teacher. So you were talking about why is it important to have a teacher. So there's a comment which says that sometimes you might not learn the instrument correctly if you're not taught correctly.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Um, Somebody is asking, Kanika is asking, were there any obstacles in your creative journey? Did everybody support your creative journey, or were there some obstacles in terms of people or other challenges?
Oh, in terms of people, no, there were no obstacles. My parents, my family, they were most supportive, and so that encouragement for me was very important. I had one of the best gurus, so uh, teaching wise, learning wise also, I learned choicest compositions. And sure, I would perhaps feel that I wish I learned, had more time with him, and could have learned even more, but that's my desire to learn. Yeah, so I don't think people ever uh, became stumbling blocks for me. There may have been certain situations which may have been stumbling blocks, um, but I never, perhaps for a brief moment, I thought that they were blocks, but because of the support that I received
Mm,
from my family,
mm,
we were constantly conversing, about all situations, because there's a very frank atmosphere at home. So to this day, it continues. So that helps you in not thinking too much, brooding too much about particular issues.
okay,
You start thinking about the solutions.
right. So the Shubham here is saying, thank you so much for the beautiful session. My question is, how do we bring back ghazal and classical music era into our musical scene?
So Shubham, I feel that you don't have to bring it back because it's still here.
Yeah.
Never went
Oh,
for me. Because I've been performing throughout, and I've been seeing full houses in various parts of the country.
right.
So, and we don't need to compare classical music or even ghazal with, let's say, rock concerts or some film music concerts.
Hmm.
Each kind of music has its own audience. So like an art house film will not get the same kind of response, let's say, that a multi-starrer blockbuster Bollywood film will. But there doesn't need to be any competition. So you just do your what your creativity motivates you to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and the audiences will find their kind of art, and the art will find their kind of its kind of audience. I will.
Absolutely. I mean, we are more than a billion population, so we don't have any shortage of ears.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good thing. I was about to say
Yeah.
that
It,
we
it's
are a.
just that it's just that we have to motivate people to expose themselves to different kinds of music, different kinds of music.
So Ashutosh was asking, what according to you is the best way to train people to be more creative? So do you think we should start in schools, or like we are doing this creativity course? What do you feel that, to have a more creative society where people are involved in more creative acts?
I think we have to start very early
Mhm.
first. So start even from kindergarten, and then slowly do it as a graded. Unfortunately, what tends to happen, Ashu. For instance, music. You take
Mm.
music.
Right.
Music is
Akbar,
let's say, music is
Akbar,
somebody is asking question.
Oh, no, it's okay. I think somebody's just unmuted themselves. You go ahead, please.
Okay. So sometimes, universities have music departments, but that has nothing to do with the music that
Akbar.
may or may not be taught at the school level.
Right.
So, there is a complete disconnect
Mm.
between the two. So we need to have this graded kind of
क्या चुप है?
step by step educational
क्या?
process.
तो ये क्या
Can we
है?
mute ourselves, please? There's somebody who's talking. Amar, can
Maybe
you just...
Ma'am, just give me a second.
Lubba,
That's why I will. Okay.
Okay.
Now, Anisha,
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
no, just give me a second. I'm muting them all. Then I will ask you to unmute. Yes, sir. Now you can unmute yourself.
Manish, yeah.
Yeah, good to
Yes.
go, sir.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, we must start early. We must encourage young minds to ask questions,
Right.
to think. Forget about thinking out of the box. That's yet another step. But just to think, that's very important, rather than just expecting everybody just to put a hammer to a nail, and then say that we are creating skills in society.
Yeah.
So because the skill has to be combined with mental skill also. The
Absolutely.
physical skill has to be combined with mental skill, and the mental skill can happen only when you start asking questions. You have a sense of curiosity. When you have a sense of curiosity, you automatically take yourself forward into finding more about particular things. You start thinking about solutions, etc., etc.
So there's a question about the commercialization of music, because we talked about that artists just can't sing for
Yes.
praise or for being in a Zen state. So of course there is a commerce involved when it comes to music, but they're saying, is commercialization of music hindering originality of art and creativity? Do you think that sometimes that plays a role in hindering it? Is that a constraint sometimes?
I don't think it's so much the commercialization. I mean, which creates a problem with the originality. Finally, who decides what is original? Um, it's the creator of the music has to decide.
Mm,
So those parameters you have to decide.
mm,
So let's say Ashu tells me, Anish, will you do music for me? But I want music of this kind, like
mm.
it's done in this film. Can
Huh.
you just make the same kind of? So it's up to me. Do I just want to take up the professional engagement,
Mm.
or do I want something different?
So Florence is asking a question which has very many technical words. Florence, if you can unmute yourself, what is she asking exactly? So when you're playing the tabla, do you follow the rules of forte, mezzo forte, and piano? And what do you
Yeah.
think comparing tabla to? I might be getting this wrong. Cajon. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Cajon,
Cajon,
man.
cajon.
It is cajon.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. So, Florence, I can't see you, but I'll just briefly answer your question. So, yes, we do have a sense of dynamics in our playing. Whether you want a very loud burst of sound, whether you want to go very soft, whether you want to go very fast, whether you want to go very slow. All these things, these are elements of music which are common to all musical systems. So it exists even in Indian classical music. About the difference between tabla and cajon, first of all, that the cajon is used with flamenco music traditionally. Of course, now it's used very much in all kinds of fusion experiments. In tabla, we have a lot of delicate single finger strokes also, which we may not have as much in the cajon. We also don't use our foot to bend the sound. It's only done with the pressure of the wrist on the bass drum. Whereas in the cajon, I think you do it with the foot, rubbing the foot against the surface.
Yes.
Yes, yes. I don't play the instrument, but I know I have looked at the technique. So
I think Florence is a musician himself because he's asking all these technical questions. What do you play? Do you sing, Florence? What do you do?
I play guitar, ma'am, and drums and keyboard.
Oh, great.
wonderful, wonderful.
I'm also sound engineer. That's why I was asking that it is included in tabla also.
Yes, yes, yes. It's very much there, very much there. But it depends on who is playing, okay? So if you're not a sensitive musician, then you may not use all these things. You may just play it like a monochromatic kind of sound, you know, da 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 da, like that, you know, no highs and lows. Sometimes, you know, yeah, sometimes even in conversation, some people talk like robos, you know. So whereas some people are very animated, you know. So it depends. The kind, finally, the music that you make depends on the kind of person you are.
That's so beautiful. So Aditya is asking, how has classical music changed over time? We talked about.
Wow. That's a long. So how has classical music changed? Well, classical music, when you talk, let's talk about North Indian or Hindustani classical music. It has a centuries old history, and through these centuries, we have developed new forms of music, and that's why you have in vocal, for instance, you have Drupad, Khayal, Thumri, Dadra, Tappa, Tarana, Trivat, Sargam, and so many other forms. All of them didn't start one fine day. You know? They started bit by bit by bit. And they started also because one influenced the other too. And they influenced each other because the practitioners, the musicians themselves, were open to getting these influences in. So that's why I spoke about the openness. So musical forms have been added from time to time. New instruments have been added. The audience profile has changed. The profile of the patrons has changed. And the profile of the musicians have also changed. Until the late 19th century, it was primarily hereditary musician families who did this form of music, this system of music professionally. But today, I'm a first generation musician and doing it professionally. So a lot has changed. The kind of training process has also changed. It's not only Guru Shishya, now you have institutions also. The formats of disseminating this music have changed. It's not only live concerts, now you have digital performances also.
Yeah, absolutely. So one last question, Anishji, because we are well over our
Yes,
time.
yes.
I don't want to keep you for long. Uh, this is from Ankita, who says that when we say creativity, we are saying imagination. We say it's like your, what she means is that you're unique when it comes to, everybody is unique when they come to being creative. So she's asking that if you start training people in creativity, would that be a hindrance in creativity? Which is a very good question. Even I would want to think about it. But what do you say, Anishji, about that?
So you know the it's a fantastic question, you know, and you can have an entire lecture on that actually.
Yeah.
So what is the actual motive or the underlying feature of the Guru Shishya Parampara? it is customized teaching.
Mhm.
Each individual is taught differently. The repertoire may be the same, okay? But the manner in which you're teaching that student, when you teach a particular thing, you decide according to the moment, according to the person you are teaching.
Right.
So, so whereas in a classroom, you're teaching by the syllabus. And so, irrespective of the nature of students in that class, you have to complete your coursework. So,
Yeah.
so you will teach accordingly. Whereas here, when there's just one-to-one teaching, it is very individually oriented. And that's where you ignite the imagination of each person differently.
That's perfectly put, I think, and that is not just about creativity. I think if we have any teachers watching or listening in, I am a teacher myself. This is a great lesson for us as teachers as well, that we have to treat
Yes,
every student as the unique and individual
yes,
person that they
yes,
are,
yeah.
and try to teach them in different ways. We are, of course, constrained by syllabus, by time,
Yes,
etc.
of course, yeah, yeah.
That is why we need to take, I think, different approaches in our teaching. So something will work for somebody and not.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And Anishi, on this note, I just want to say that technology is also playing a great role these days, because I handle the online learning also in the university.
Oh,
So we are
absolutely.
using technology to kind of identify this, the behaviors of people, how they are engaging with the content online, to
Yes,
understand how they are learning and kind of customize learning pathways for them. So yeah, the world is changing. Technology is playing a role in music, in creativity, in everything, teaching. And of course, it played a great role today because we all got connected in
yes.
different parts of the country, and me in the Abu Dhabi. Um,
Thanks to you. Thank you. Thank you
yeah,
very much
that's
for
been a
having me in
wonderful,
your
wonderful
classroom.
session. Yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot.
Same here.
As we
Same
sit
here.
and ruminate and introspect about what all I have learned today, and try and include that in my subsequent classes. I hope the students had a good time, and they kind of understood that whatever was being taught in class for creativity. Actually, I'm very happy that you kind of resonated those things, and you come from the practical side of it, or the practical context of it, because you're practicing creativity every day in whatever you're doing. So it's been so wonderful. Thank you so much, Anish ji. I
Thank you
want
very much. And feel free to reach out if you have any specific comments or
absolutely.
questions.
Yeah. So
And
I'll
I
encourage my
will try to.
students, even the first years, if you have any specific questions for Anish ji, which you were shy to
Or
ask
any
in this
feedback.
session,
Or any feedback.
or any feedback, yeah,
Yes.
absolutely, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll pass it on to Anish ji. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Anish ji. It was really wonderful. Thank you to all the students who have stayed on for a session that went well beyond its time, but it was so interesting, we just couldn't stop talking.
Thank you. And thank you to the university too. Thank
Absolutely,
you.
our
Thank you,
pleasure.
Amariti. Thank you.
We hope we can get you for some more sessions,
Certainly.
not just creativity, and maybe a performance one day in campus.
Sure. Certainly.
Okay, on that note,
Thank
thank
you.
you
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Amar, for all your help, and thank you,
Thank you,
students.
ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashu ma'am, can you stay after a while? I need to tell you something.
Sure.
So students, you can drop off. I need to discuss something with Ashu ma'am. So ma'am, the recording is on your cloud,
Okay.
which the ID from which you actually arranged this now.
Sure. Thank you so
Right,
much,
ma'am.
Amar. Thank you,
Okay.
Amar, for coordinating. All the placement committee members also who coordinate.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I hope
Right,
you
ma'am.
enjoyed it. Bye.